Hi everyone, thanks Tara for inviting me to this webinar. So I hope everyone is going well with this particular context of COVID. And so the project I'm going to talk about is a project I've been working for 3 years, from June 2016 to May 2019. It's a European project that involved 500,000 participants across Europe. And so during this project, we organized 860 events with the aim of enhancing the awareness of citizen science and DIY science at both public and policy level. So we also had like science bus traveling to reach people from marginalized regions, and it traveled in 17 locations all around Europe. So I'm gonna do today a specific focus on a policy brief I've been coordinating with the title of Unleashing the Potential of Citizen Science as an Educational Tool toward the Sustainable Development Goals, how we can use quality education, how quality education can be a tool to empower society. So in this policy brief, we demonstrated the role that educational practices through citizen science, how citizen science itself can be a tool to innovate in educations and make students be more active in their learning, and also connected to people working on real case studies like water quality. So we see how we can mix lifelong skills, attitudes, and knowledge all together like a recipe for people to be change makers. The aim of this policy brief was mainly to support decision makers in education and science policy towards a more meaningful, transformative learning and teaching. So the focus of this policy brief was SDG 4, quality education, and rethinking how science is taught. But the thing is, through education, then we can tackle all the other SDGs. So you can see here in this tab, you can aspects of citizen science, different aspects, for example, based on scientific methodology, what students learn from it. So working with hypotheses and experimenting design, gathering data, extracting conclusions from observations and or data, criticize and discuss. And then you can see the related pedagogy, like evidence-based pedagogy, learning through research, theoretical learning. Then, so I can go into more details about this tab, but the thing we showed is citizen science allows to have a mix of different pedagogies. So sometimes you can hear that the best pedagogy is learning through doing, like learning through doing, or versus theoretical learning. Here what we show is that it's a combination of all these different pedagogy all together that are very allowed by citizen science, are interesting, so we can manage to both at the same time going from abstraction to concrete examples, and from examples to be able then to have a broader vision of what can be done in different fields. So another aspect of citizen science is project structure. So what students learn from it is to manage a project and with its resources like time, money, actors, and the related pedagogy is project-based education. Then you have community-based involving various actors. So what students learn from it is interacting, connecting, and coordinating with various actors, benefiting from the experience of the others, practicing inclusivity, patience, and other key social skills from interdisciplinary generational learning, and it refers to community-based learning. Then you have engagement-centered. So what students learn from it is to get into action, and to find motivation and self-confidence. And the related pedagogy are action-oriented pedagogy and hands-on learning. Then you have the real-world implications and applicability. So for that, real world is something we have heard a lot when we went into the schools. Students can be bored or don't find any sense in what they learn because they need something concrete, something that relates to their like daily lives, and that so through citizen science, working on real-world implications and applicability is very interesting for them. So using theoretical knowledge in reality and solving concrete case problems. Related pedagogies are authentic situation pedagogy, learning by doing, and challenge-based education. And then at the end, based on sharing culture, so it's practicing openness and sharing culture. By democratizing research, by sharing knowledge and resources. So you see there is scientific knowledge, for example, genetics, researchers so you can see the stakeholders. So you have researchers and citizens having a societal concern, for example, water quality, GMO, etc. So by citizen science allows sharing knowledge and resources using both scientific knowledge and scientific methodology, for example, data collection. In this policy brief, we have examples of case study, inspiring examples happening in Europe, because it's a European project then. So we focused on Europe, but there's also many great examples happening all around the world. So one of them is the high school biodesign workshops. So it's a series of workshops addressing the field of biodesign for students aged 15 to 17 years old through a variety of experimentation activities. It's divided into 3 parts. The first is introduction. We introduce them to microalgae and its mapping in water samples from different areas. The second is applications of microalgae and ozonates and the process of bioremediation. And then third, experimentation with kombucha and its different uses. What was interesting here is that we connected the schools with we worked with like 15 schools, and we connected them with research centers working on water quality. So the results from the experiments, they were published in the journal Biotech News, which is an open source, open science journal. And the results also were shared with the researchers working on that field. So there are like a UCL in London, but there are also many other research centers in France. I listed here some key recommendations if you want to, because I don't really know who you are, but I have like an idea that if you want to replicate these workshop, I would be happy to share with you some like good practices. We have a deliverable brought specifically on that. And some key recommendations would be to ease pressures and constraints on teachers' time and resources through funding dedicated to infrastructure and opportunities for knowledge sharing, such as network, open courses, and curriculum platforms. Then the second is finance and incentivize non-school citizen science actors to coordinate workshops or projects within schools, universities, and other educational institutions. And then third, develop infrastructure in which empowered citizens can practice and develop citizen science projects once they leave the education system. Such structures could be libraries, fab labs, or new centers of research dedicated to citizen action, in which specialists would mainly have a mentorship focus to help citizens carry out their own projects. So there's many other recommendations and good practices, like I said. So don't hesitate to ask me and I'll be happy to share. Another case study is the Collab bioremediation workshops. One of them happened in London, UCL, in November 2016. The Collab Workshop were led by the Open Science School Association that we collaborated with. These Collab Workshops are a series of interdisciplinary co-creation workshops around different topics related to biodesign. If you're not really familiar with biodesign, so what it means is how you can use, there's many definitions of biodesign. So it could be how you get inspired from nature to innovate. So it's related to the notions of concepts of biomimicry, bioinspiration, etc. Then it could be how you apply engineering methodology to design, to biology. So then you have synthetic biology, for example. You can modify the genes to gain a specific, for example, if you want if you heard of CRISPR-Cas9, it's like one of the examples of what you can do with synthetic biology. Or it could be bioart. So there are two different approaches with bioart. Either you question life and you make some piece of art out of it. So it's more philosophical point of view, or it could be how you do art with biological materials. And it's interesting with that is that it's an evolving piece of art, because there is biology, like living things in your art. So yeah, there's many definitions. Here with the biodesign workshop, bioremediation workshop is how you can use eco-friendly solutions to tackle the water quality problem. So we worked with it was a 3-day collab bioremediation workshop that was held at the University College London and the Institute of Making. This event gathered participants from different specializations ranging from biology, engineering, and chemistry to neurosciences, architecture, design, and social scientists, with the aim to collaborate, co-design, and prototype solutions to tackle environmental pollution. I just put again the definition of bioremediation just in case you didn't know. So it refers to the use of plants and microorganisms to remove or sequester pollutants. The remarkable aspect of this workshop was its topic was linked to a real pollution case study introduced by the Blacksmith Institute NGO based in India. As such, the workshop started an introduction to the case study. So you can see here on the right, it's a copy of photo of the program, the schedule of the Collab bioremediation workshop. So it started with a introduction to a case study and a stakeholder empathy map, during which we try to understand different viewpoints and interests of policymakers, industry, local organizations, and population involved in the case study. The aim of this empathy map is for people to be able to understand who are the different stakeholders, and also understand better the arguments, like the viewpoints of each part. So then we have this collective intelligence, allowing people then to co-create all together a solution, integrating all the viewpoints of the different stakeholders. So during this 3-day of the workshop, scientists had the opportunity to learn about design thinking and ethnographic methodology in science, and designers gained exposure to lab environments and technique. So we really encourage peer-to-peer learning. If you are designers, then you can learn what biologists do, and the biologists can also give you some tips and advice about what they do with bio. So peer-to-peer learning functioned quite well. By the end of the workshop, the participants' projects were presented to the public. We had people from the NGO, Blacksmith Institutes, being here. So they were very interested by all the prototypes that were presented, because all these prototypes could be solutions that they can directly then implement on a local level. All the laboratory sessions were designed to demonstrate to the participant that some biological organisms can adapt to pollutants such as heavy metals, can bind or take them up to decrease their toxicity. The first case was a customizable ultra-filtration membranes from bacterial cellulose made from kombucha. Kombucha, you can see a photo here on the right. Kombucha is a symbiotic living material made of a variable composition of different species of bacteria and yeast. The cellulose matrix formed in a cultural medium can be used as a biocellulose tissue to create clothes or biopaper, but also as a cosmetology for its anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and anti-cancer properties. The purpose of the Using Bacterial Cellulose for Water Filtration workshop was to explore the potential of how this natural microbial bioproduct can act as a binder for contaminants in water, using solutions of the heavy metal nickel as an example. Participants were given various samples, like oven-dried or wet, of bacterial cellulose, which had been pre-grown from a kombucha, so fermented tea protocol, using a starter, we call it SCOBY, bought from common online retailer. After passing nickel-containing water solution through the materials, participants saw a reduction in amount of nickel compared to the starting concentration as measured using a quick colorimetric assay read in spectrophotometer. So in this workshop, you had biologists, architects, designers, everyone participating all together. So it's the aim of this workshop is for people to understand as well that science can be accessible. You don't have to have a degree to be able to participate, and also to show that there is solutions, eco-friendly solutions to remove pollutant from water, and that designers and people, non-scientists, can have a role to play in these topics. So designers are not meant to be only people designing chairs or tables. They can also use their knowledge, because design is like more a methodology. It's a way of thinking. It's how also to integrate all the how to best respond to an issue. So this collaboration was very interesting. I think one of the attendees of this webinar is my friend. So I have two people I know, Sharina and Celine. And Celine is a designer and biologist at the same time, and she was there during the workshop. So it would be great if maybe after during the questions, if you want to add something. Up. Then case 2, alternate encapsulation of chlorella. Chlorella is a genus of single-cell green algae. Alginate is a biopolymer coming from the cell walls of kelp, among other algae. It can keep living bacteria, algae, or even enzymes in the inside. Encapsulation by a permeable membrane can allow sustained growth without any contamination. So it's very interesting to see that. So to create the encapsulated balls of fibers, participants were asked to make some concentrated algae solution with the alginate solution. Drop by drop, they poured the alginate algae mix into the calcium chloride solution. The alginate algae drops then became solid when floating in the calcium chloride solutions. biotechnology of microalgae has gained popularity due to the growing need for novel environmental technologies. Inexpensive and sustained growth requirements like solar light and CO2, and the possibility to use the biomass simultaneously for multiple technologies like carbon mitigation, biofuel production, and bioremediation make microalgae promising candidates for several eco-friendly technologies. So there's many laboratories working on that, and like UCL, and having very promising results. There is also the Bartlett Institute, which is an architect. So more and more, you can see more and more engineering schools, architect schools, design schools, opening also their fields to response to the environmental issues, how to use all the knowledge from their students, and to train them so they're able also to tackle these environmental issues, such as here water quality. Recommendations from these workshops are first allowing participants to discuss the predicted outcomes of the experiments before entering the laboratory environment, may encourage playfulness and inclusiveness among scientists and designers. Second is introducing more hands-on activities to help participants generate ideas by making rather than expect them to have an idea before they start making. So the importance of hands-on. Third is collecting ideas and thoughts of people and experts from the industry who have or are trying to execute a similar scientific research or working in the field to tackle the same problems, asking them about their experience over the years or their practices, learning from their fields related observations, the processes that they undertake, and most importantly, what they would expect from an interdisciplinary workshop in the true sense. Four, then connect their knowledge through interviews from designers who are increasingly collaborating with clients and researchers from the field, sharing their experiences and design-related difficulties and some thought-provoking suggestions for the participants of the workshop in guiding them through the next few days of the intensive collaborative week of knowledge gaining and idea development. And last is, however, it is worth reflecting as to when it's the most appropriate stage to bring in experts' inputs for maximum input, balancing the integration of knowledge without overwhelming the participants. During the 3 days, they have a lot to learn, a lot to discover. So how we can correctly the use like a knowledge exchange, lab hands-on experience, and also give the time. This is something we don't say often enough, I would say, is to also give space and time to the participants just to be surprised by all the collaborations that can happen, all the informal also discussions that can happen between them, and also I would say having a real case study and bringing NGOs, bringing people working on the topic you want to tackle. So then they also had the feeling they're working on a real case study, and it's not just a hackathon or a workshop they're doing. It's they are really participating to something that is happening, and all the production, all the prototypes are not done only for nothing. They have a real implementation after that. I think I'm done. I've finished. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Just to let you know that it's been 1 year. I'm not working on that project anymore, but I'm still connected somehow with the schools we've been working, because I'm still in the CRE Paris, so Center for Research and Interdisciplinarity. But now I'm working on new projects. So I am now head of outreach and pedagogy and working on a national project called RTR, RTR, for fulfill your dreams. It's more around social, how you can help people very far remote from employment to gain self-confidence and find either a job that is aligned to their values or be entrepreneurs. So we are guiding them through workshops, activities, mentorship, coaching, and I'm also, so in everything I'm doing, because I'm convinced of the value of citizen science, I'm trying to see how also in this project, which is not really connected to this European project, how citizen science can be a tool for people who, for example, they might have an idea of being entrepreneur in a field. So we try to tell them to, if their project can be connected, can have a real value for their society. So, for example, someone who wants to be a hairdresser will say, okay, you want to be a hairdresser? This is a very good project. So these are the trainings you could do, how we can accompany you, but also in your work, how you can use, for example, eco-friendly products products that are not then transform pollutants and put in water. So in every product people have, we still have in mind that it's important for them to have this environmental consciousness and citizen science, and they can participate in science by collecting data, by just being interested and talk to the people, to their surroundings, about the importance of taking care of their own environments. So
thank you.
think
if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and type them in the chat. In the meantime, I have a question. I was wondering if you could expand a bit on the water quality case study that you gave, and were you kind of involving, I know you said that it was based on sort of a real issue, and I was just wondering if you could expand on kind of what the problem was, and you spoke about the multidisciplinary kind of all the different sectors that you brought in, and maybe some of the results that they came up with. Also, I have to thank you for the bioremediation definition, because leading up to the webinars, I did have to Google that. So great to include it.
okay. So you want to have more details in which way exactly? Like what specifically you would be interested in?
Well, I was just wondering if you could kind of talk about like the problem that they had going in, and sort of what they were trying to address with the water quality, and what they were looking for, and some of the solutions they came up with, maybe. Because I'm not sure if there was this case study or the previous one, you said that the results were published, which is quite impressive for for citizens.
The high school.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So 2 questions.
Okay. So for this one with the high schools, so basically we worked with so 2 researchers collecting data about the water in the rivers in the Île-de-France region, so the region where Paris is. And so what they did is they took samples in the river, just around in their surroundings, just next to their home, and then they bring it at school. We do experiments, and also in the material, the equipment that we use, we try to make our own equipment. So we also transmit the DIY thing. And so they analyze with the DIY spectrophotometer the how would say, sorry for my English, I haven't been talking in English for quite a long time. So they analyze what's inside the water, and they measure if it's less or not less, if it's polluted, like the concentration of pollutants in water, and they report it with a GPS, so localization. So every time they take a sample, they also write down the GPS reference. And then we have this big Google Sheets Excel where they put, so yeah, I do it from memory because it was 2 years ago, that one. So they put where the GPS coordinates. Then they put where does it come from? Like, for example, from a pond, from a lake, from like where? A river. Then the concentration, for example, of nitrates, of like all the pollutants that can be inside. And yeah.
It's so teaching me about the background. A bit of background noise. I think someone was unmuted there.
Okay.
Carry on.
And then, so all this data is then sent, then it generates, so it's sent to the research center, and then they generate a map. And from this map, so you would say like from 15 or 20 students from a school, it's not much. But if you sum all the different workshops we did at schools, and also we trained the teachers so then they could do the activities without us, so it's a continuous ongoing process, then it was interesting for the researchers to have like each year, each month, they can see the evolution of pollutants in like areas that they couldn't reach themselves. This is, I think, the real value of citizen science, is for researchers that when you talk about biodiversity or collecting data about something, like it's too big, I meant immense, like it's too difficult for only one researcher to collect all to be able to go himself or herself into the different places and take samples. Then you use the population as monitors, environmental monitors. And so that was one of the projects that was done. We also did with schools other projects on other topics, like bioart with Kombucha. They created like clothes or with Kombucha as an alternative to like vegan leather. So that was the first thing. Then if I go to this Collab bioremediation workshop, so the Blacksmith Institute, I have to find again like what was the real case study. I think it's somewhere in my archives, but so it's an NGO in India. They gave us this case study about this river polluted because of the textile industry. And so we had information about the reaction from the local population, from the NGOs there, from the industry also creating this textiles industry producing these pollutants. So we had all these viewpoints, and thanks to that we were able to do the empathy workshop. And so what I also have some examples of prototypes. Maybe if you want to see them, they're in. Oh, I should have loaded this before, but there is a book about this workshop with all the details of how it happened. There. So, learning through doing, I would say the main gain is that they have an active learning, that they're not just considered as robots having to learn by heart things that the teacher says. There is a lot of examples of, for example, you want to learn biodiversity, you want to learn about like rocks in your in the mountain just in front of you. So what, instead of opening a book and learning by heart all the stones that are there, you just go on the field and you practice yourself. And it's so active learning, also encouraging questioning. We it's also encouraging failure and success. Like you are allowed to fail, and through failure you can learn better because you it's like anchoring the knowledge into your mind because you know it was not that, and then through it's like learning through research as well. So I think the value of learning through doing has no longer has to be proven that it's a very good pedagogy, that it's complementary. For me, as I said, it's complementary to more theoretical learning because you can learn through doing to have a because sometimes you cannot go. So learning through doing, it's interesting because you can learn on specific things, case studies, specific like environment specific things. But if you want to have a vision of on a broader scale, then theoretical learning is interesting. So you can combine both. We also did like workshops on, I can maybe share with you another presentation. We worked with a researcher doing he created a kit to detect GMO.
Okay, can you expand a bit on what kit they use to detect GMOs? That sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you. So that was the full day program of the workshop. First, we introduced citizen science, open source, and Fab Labs. So it was lecture. Then how to detect fluorescence. Again, it's a lecture. Then we do hands-on, so they can you can switch from theoretical knowledge to hands-on and try it by yourself. So it was building a DIY fluorescent detector using soldering. Then again, a lecture, how to detect GMO in food. And then experiment, testing food samples to detect GMOs. And then you have debate, developing critical thinking and empathy through role playing. And again, you have an experiment, analyzing and sharing the results of the experiments. So here, the lecture. So there, building a DIY fluorescence detector. There it was very interesting because so when we started the lectures, we had some students that were bored because lectures, this is what they have all the time at school. But hands-on, it's more, for them, it's more playful. And so it was using soldering. It was funny because one of the students, so this is a story I like to tell the story because this guy really touched me, like it moved me because he was had very bad grades at school and very bad marks at schools, and school is not was making a bit him suffer. And when we did this workshop, when he heard that we were about to do soldering, he said, "Oh, that's great. This is what I know from my dad, who is an electrician." So he did, and he finished the little, like here, the little device. He finished first, and so then, because we encourage peer-to-peer learning, he went to help the other students in the class, and then he asked, "But why do we do that? What the use?" And when we told him that the aim was then to detect the GMO, and it can be used in everything in your daily life when you buy a food, when you're in a canteen, everywhere. You can use that tool that you've created. He was very happy with that. And so we could do the testing food samples. It's like for him having a real case. So you can see the guy here again. Having a real case study is like making the knowledge meaningful for them. So role playing, and then analyzing and sharing the results of experiment. When I was talking about collaboration between different disciplines, so there in this workshop we had with us we had physics teacher, technology teacher, biology teacher, philosophy teacher, all together, and tackling a societal concern that was GMO. And through the GMO topic, we use disciplines as a way of understanding, of creating, of experimenting things in order to better understand the topic, and not so I don't know if I'm very clear about that. It's a way and not the aim. Like learning by when you're doing your math or physics, the aim is not to know by heart like the law of physics. The aim is also to be able to understand your environment and then to see how concretely you can do something with that. So by bringing to them this concern and showing them that by combining all these different disciplines together, they could manage to better understand the GMO, they could detect it, they could understand also what is it, and why there is industry producing it, and also they could build their own opinion about that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Angela says, thank you for the great explanation. Yeah, and I kind of understand what you mean, that it's sort of, yeah, the practical experience kind of shows you more the methodology that you use, not necessarily the results, because I suppose one is used more often. I did have a question, because you offer this program has run in a few different countries across Europe, and I wondered if you have to kind of tailor it to national curriculums in the different countries that you work with, and if so, do you have any recommendations for kind of developing citizen-based science that will that will be adaptable to multinational curriculums?
That's a very good question. So actually myself, I don't know exactly how it ended. So we this policy brief was released at the very end of the project. And then I left the project, and because it was finished. What I know is that now there is a network of schools working with whom we have been working, and this network has expanded, and they're working using these citizen science approaches. But I'm not able to tell you like exactly how in a policy making level how they have taken up these recommendations and scale it to a broader level. But these are the recommendations we gave. It has been heard by the European Commission and by the policymakers. So we did a lot of policy advocating. We went to the ministries, went to the schools to see all the different stakeholders involved in education, and trying to not to convince, but to show them all the benefits of using citizen science approaches at school, and having more transdisciplinary approach of learning knowledge, instead of having mathematics, physics, science, all separated. How we can build a coherence between all the different disciplines, and also tackling the dropping out effect in school. People not connect, like dropping out of schools because they don't, for them, school doesn't have any sense. And through citizen science, working on real case studies, connecting schools, so opening the gates of schools to research centers, to communities, NGOs. We could also have community-based learning. So we had, for the moment, we have great examples of things happening in Europe and in the world in general, but I'm not like able to tell you precisely how the effects and how it has been taken up after this policy brief.
Okay, I see. And just in terms of when you were initiating the programs and stuff, did they need to fit with the school's curriculum? So, because I know you referred to not trying to take up too much of the teacher's time, and I think that's often a constraint here, is that if specific topics aren't in the curriculums, then teachers don't necessarily have time to cover those topics. So I was wondering if you had to sort of base the experiments and practical activities on things that were already being covered in the school's curriculum?
Yeah, so it was very difficult to convince schools. So, for example, in France, I guess it's different from one country to another, but in France, the administration is very heavy, I would say. So you have to have the validation from we call it academy, so the institution validating like the content that is in the curriculum. Then through the academy, then the inspectors, and then so we had to validate many levels in order to be able to go into the schools and proposing these workshops. Also, these were the teachers, so they are very, very, very motivated to do this. But they say the biggest like testimonials, like feedback we have from teachers is they don't have time. They're not allowed because they have like they know what they have to do precisely each hour, and if they don't do the whole full program that they have to do, then it's a big problem for them because the inspector is like uh, saying, okay, no, you haven't done what you have done and it's not good, and etc. So blaming them. So we had to convince the inspectors and the academy of the uh, um, the use the utility, like the benefits of doing such practices, and also inviting researchers at schools, inviting peoples from the outside for the teachers to be able to do such workshops. Now they have, for example, in France, they have developed like like hours of exploration where teachers are allowed to do things of their choice, not in the schedule, but it's like 1 hour per week. So we did these workshops during this time more specifically. But so that was a key recommendation in the policy brief, is how we can ease pressure and constraints on teachers' time so they're able to do such workshops. But also what I think is very important is having a broader thinking and reflection about how having citizen science not as an additional like course in the schedule, but as a red line, like something which is transversal, like can concern all the different disciplines. So to see the curriculum in a broader view, and how citizen science can be a tool, a methodology of learning in all the different disciplines, and not only having citizen science courses. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are very inspiring examples, like the Lesin, it's called Leysine. Oh, sorry, Leysin. Lesin School in Switzerland. They're doing citizen science education. So everything is citizen science methodology based. They're learning art by going to so they're in the middle of the mountains. They learn art by going to the mountain and painting the landscape. And then at the same time, they collect things from fauna and flora around them at the same time. So they have the citizen science methodology. And the thing is, it's so the schools which are doing this for the moment are private schools because they have more freedom in doing such things, and also because it's new, then it requests more resources, and it requests also more mentorship. So public schools are not ready to do this now without any external help. When we went to the schools, we were an association. We didn't ask any funding in exchange. We did it for free. So there's also a reflection about the business model, how we can sustain this effort through time. And one of the key thing we thought is, because we cannot go to the schools all the time, is to train the teachers so they are able. Teacher training is like key things to have sustained effort.
All right, thanks so much. It's very interesting to hear about all the different programs that are happening there. I don't see any other messages in the chat, but if anyone has any questions later, you're welcome to email us, and we will be happy to pass those along to Imane. Otherwise, I don't see anything else now. So I'd just like to thank you for presenting for us today. It was great to hear all the like advanced citizen science methods that you're using. Yeah, it's very interesting. And thanks so much. And there's a comment that says, thank you so much. You were great, very informative and inspiring. Yeah, and so thank you also to everyone for joining us here today. The recording will be available on our YouTube page. So I think we can close it here. Thanks, everyone. I hope everyone enjoys their weekend and stay safe during COVID. And a special thanks again, Imane. It was great to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me and talking on that topic that I haven't been working for like a year. It's really great, because like now I'm okay, I should contact again the people I was working a year ago and to see how it has evolved and what are the impacts of this policy brief on the policy making thing. And maybe with the COVID crisis, we see more and more the use and the importance of citizen science, and of how people from like amateurs and people from the population can be involved in order to find solutions to prevent, tackle, find solutions to struggle, like to fight the disease, to prevent the disease from coming, to build their own DIY masks. So you can see the citizen science community has been very well mobilized during this this crisis, and it has shown the importance of how we can education. If it was integrated in education, we would have a even more bigger mobilization.
That's true. It would be very inspiring next time if everyone's a lot more equipped to deal with it as a result of all the citizen science methodologies. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And thanks again, Imane. I'll end the meeting here. If anyone has any questions, though, I'm sure Imane would be happy for you to email her. Otherwise, you can email us and we'll pass those along.